something that we're expected to automatically know how to do when we get to high school and university is to know how to study, but we're never actually taught how to study. And as a result, we end up struggling because our study methods are inefficient and we end up getting burnt out and frustrated because we're not retaining the information and we become bored, unmotivated and unengaged. I'm in my third and my final year of nursing school, so it's taken me a couple of years to kind of figure out what study methods work best for me, but obviously something's worked because over the past 3 years I have achieved all A grades ranging from A minuses to A pluses, with the exception of one B plus grade that I got last year. If you're new here, hi, my name is Charlotte and today I'm going to be sharing with you step by step how I study at nursing school. Before we get into everything, don't forget to like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, but for now let's just dive right in. So I don't know about you guys, but my biggest problem with studying is that I find it really boring, and because I find it boring, it makes it really difficult for me to stay engaged and also not procrastinate it. So this next section is just going to be all about how to make it fun. But my first tip is, if you are a social person and you like settings where you're kind of held more accountable, you find it really difficult to work alone, my first piece of advice is to start or to join a study group. These are super duper easy because they don't have to be a formal thing. You don't have to join a club or anything. You can just put a message on your group chat, on your Facebook page. I say Facebook page because my nursing school cohort has our own Facebook page, which we're all part of. If you're looking to start or join a study group, you can just broadcast it on the Facebook page. I feel like group settings are really helpful when trying to make things fun, because it kind of feels less like you're doing a chore and more like you're hanging out with friends. You can also make it really fun because you can switch up the setting that you're studying in. You can go to different libraries, go to a cafe. There's lots of ways that you can make these group study sessions fun. My second tip is to put on some music. This is a very basic tip and it's probably something that you've definitely heard before. I think it's a really good way to kind of just get stuck into it initially. So that's my next tip, is to set the environment a little bit by playing some music that you like. My next two tips are also kind of basic, but I also think they're really helpful. The first is to make your environment welcoming. So for example, I've got my desk and it's got, you know, little knickknacks on the wall and stuff which are cute and everything's pink and it's just a really nice space for me to be in. Come in, you could light a candle, like a vision board or something up, just something, you know, that makes you feel like you enjoy being in the space that you're studying. You know, keeping your study space clean so that it's not cluttered and overwhelming. Having snacks and drinks handy so that you don't have to get up to repeatedly to go to the kitchen to get stuff and then you're breaking that study groove. The other thing that I would suggest is to change up your study space every now and then. I find it difficult to work at home sometimes because Juno is very distracting sometimes, my little Shih Tzu. So sometimes when I need a bit of a break or I need to change things up because I'm not so motivated to be working at home, I'll go to my university library and I'll find a study space there. Switching up your study space can keep things interesting. The other thing that I do every single time that I study is I use a timer or an app to keep myself focused. So the two apps that I use, the main one is Forest, where you get to plant little trees. So you choose the tree that you want to plant, you set a timer or a stopwatch. You can put it in deep focus so that you can't access any other app on your phone and stuff. As you are studying, you are technically, all the time that you spent studying contributes towards the growing of a tree. And Forest is really good because they also have like a real life tree planting mission. So how many trees you plant equates to, you know, like one tree being planted in real life or something. So you're also helping the planet while you study too, which is pretty cool. The other app that I love using is Donut Dog. So you have a little dog on your screen and when you press the timer, the start timer app, the amount of time leads to how many donuts that you're collecting so that you can feed and look after your little dog. And it's very cute and something that I definitely recommend, because if you don't study for a certain amount of time or if you know, miss a streak and stuff, your little dog becomes very hungry and angry with you. So it's very motivating. It sounds really silly, but it is really effective psychologically. So I would definitely recommend finding a timer or a focus app so that you can level up your study sessions. The last thing that I would do, and no one talks about this because it's a little bit weird, but I do this because it is very effective for me. The last thing that I I would do to make your study sessions fun is to go onto YouTube and you search up an ASMR room or an ambience room, because you can get all different kinds of magical worlds that you can study in. So for example, I love Harry Potter, so if I were to study and I was feeling a little bit unmotivated, unproductive, and I needed to make my study session fun, I would search up Harry Potter ASMR or ambience room on YouTube, and it will come up with hundreds and thousands of different little rooms. They're videos with like a setting and different music or people chatting in the background. It like sets a scene that you are in Hogwarts, for example, and then I would spend my study session pretending that I'm not actually studying anatomy and physiology, I am studying potions. That sounds really dumb. That sounds really lame, but it works. It makes things fun. It makes things interesting. There are so many different ASMR rooms that you can go into. So you could do Harry Potter, you can do Lord of the Rings, you could do Medieval Tavern, you could do a Philosopher's Library, Disney Princess. There are so many different rooms and ambience rooms that you can watch and just play in the background while you're studying to make you feel, you know, just a little bit like you're in a fantasy movie, and it's cute. So now that we've got all of the resources that we need to make our study sessions fun and engaging, the next one that I want to talk about are the practical aspects of studying. So my first tip is to be consistent on some level. So I would recommend doing 15 to 30 minutes a day of studying. If it's just on the weekdays or if it's every day, have somewhat of a routine to keep yourself consistent so that it becomes easier over time as it becomes more of a habit. Because if it's not a habit, we spend more energy trying to motivate ourselves to just do it. A little bit getting done is better than nothing getting done at all. The next one that I want to talk about is kind of important for actually retaining information, and that's using scientifically backed and proven study methods. So I'm talking about things like spaced repetition, things like active recall, doing practice exams, because these are the things that our brain responds to. I've spoken a little bit about it in a couple of other videos, but our brain has a natural forgetting curve. This means that there is a time limit between you being exposed to new information and you forgetting the information. And initially, the forgetting curve, the time between those 2 points, is really short and you forget things very quickly. However, if we beat the forgetting curve by being exposed to the information repetitively before we forget things, the forgetting curve time gets further and further apart until we know the information. And that is the way that I explain the forgetting curve. So this is the forgetting curve, and this is what spaced repetition helps us to overcome. So I use an app called Anki. I made a video about it on how I use it. So if you're interested, just go check that out. So I use Anki. You can also go the DIY route and go with homemade flashcards. There are other apps like Quizlet, which also do spaced repetition. My favorite nursing resource, Lecturio, also has a spaced repetition section. So as long as you incorporate a little bit of spaced repetition into your revision and your study schedule, you should be on track to really retaining and knowing the information that you are processing. And the other thing is active recall. If I'm doing a proper study session, proper revision session, then I will do it definitely before my study session and then sometimes after, just to kind of review the information that I've gone over. Active recall is pretty much you are just recalling as much information that you possibly can about a topic. Active recall is super important, especially when you're in exam situations. When you're in exam situations, you are actively recalling everything that you know. So if you get into the habit of doing this in your study sessions, you're more prepared for high intensity, high stress situations such as exams. Another way that you can practice active recall is by doing practice exams and practice questions. That's why I use Lecturio, because they have, you know, practice questions and exams for me to do. There are heaps of resources online. There's a YouTube channel called Simple Nursing, and they sometimes provide practice questions in their videos. Just search up nursing practice questions and I'm sure that heaps and heaps of stuff will come up. But practice exams and practice questions are a really good way for you to get into the habit of doing active recall and just being prepared for your exams, and also for, as I say, high stress situations where you need to know things off the top of your brain. So scientifically backed study methods like active recall and spaced repetition are active revision, but sometimes we need to do passive revision in order to keep ourselves engaged. So passive passive revision are tasks like highlighting things, reading notes, writing notes even, watching videos. But I think a lot of study YouTubers and study specialists will say, you know, don't do passive revision techniques because they're not effective and they're a waste of your time. But again, I disagree, because I think that if it's something that's going to keep you engaged and it's something that's going to just get you into the groove of studying, like if you need to start your study session and you're not in the mood for it, then passive revision is a really good way just to start getting into the swing of things. So for me, my go-to passive revision technique is watching videos. I'll jump onto YouTube and I will watch whatever video either takes my fancy or whatever video like topic that I'm focusing on. And again, I'm not actively recalling anything, however it's still helpful because it's getting me engaged, it's getting me interested in the topic, and it's helping me become a bit more motivated to start those active revision processes. So incorporate study methods that you also enjoy. Start with things that you enjoy doing and that you find helpful, and then work your way into the active revision later on in your study session if that helps you. So the next thing, you don't have to do this in order to study well, but it is a really good way to exercise your curiosity and learn more about different topics that you're interested in, and that is to do extra readings. I try and do one extra reading a week. It takes up a bit of my time, so if I'm busy or if I've got, you know, a huge to-do list of stuff, it's not going to be on the top of my list to do. The whole point of learning things and being a student is that you're curious, so this is a really good exercise to stay curious and to, you know, expand your knowledge on a topic. And because they're not given to you by your university, it's really, there's no limits to what you can be looking up and developing your interests in. So I would really recommend doing, you know, one extra reading a week, one extra reading a month even. My next tip is something that I go on about all the time, and that's to use trusted nursing school resources. You could use YouTube channels such as Registered Nurse RN, Simple Nursing. Ninja Nerd is a medical school resource, but so good for nursing school because he goes really in depth into all the topic, and I swear it was what got me through my acute nursing school exams, because he just went so in depth into everything. It really helped me understand what was going on, and I was able to write a really comprehensive and in-depth answer for my exam questions. Ninja Nerd is a resource I would definitely recommend, but my main resource that I use, I've talked about them in the past, I've made videos about them, not sponsored, but you know, Lecturio is my go-to nursing school resource. It is the only nursing school resource that has kept me engaged and coming back to it long term. Most resources I will use occasionally, but Lecturio is my like gold standard resource. It has lectures, little mini videos that range from 1 minute to 10 minutes. They have practice exams, practice questions, cheat sheets, spaced repetition as well with little flashcards. Lecturio is the only resource that I have used throughout nursing school comprehensively and long term, and it's also the only resource that has made me feel significantly more confident after using it. Find your Lecturio, find your trusted nursing school resource, use it, because they really do make all the difference in the world if you have something that you can keep going back to, something that helps make you feel confident and explains things well to you. My second to last tip for this video is to end your study sessions on a high, because if you end them feeling frustrated and upset and angry, you're less likely to want to come back to it the next time you have to study. So the way that I end my study sessions on a high is by reviewing content that I already know and that I'm already familiar with and that I could get A+ answer in an exam if I was asked. I don't need to be revising this information because I do know it, but it just makes me feel good because it reinforces that yes, I know this stuff, I am competent, I am knowledgeable. Ending your study sessions on a high. There could also be things with like, you know, ticking off the last thing on your to-do list. That is very satisfying. So find a way to end your study session positively so that you're more likely to be invested and interested in going back to studying the next time you have to. My last tip for this video regards placements. So if you're anything like me, you'll probably feel exhausted when you're doing placements. You'll probably have assessments and stuff that you have to work on during placements, and you probably won't have any energy to revise or study. My main advice for when you're on placements is to reduce your study time or cut it out, because you're not going to retain information and you're not going to learn anything new if your brain is a potato because of how tired you are. So, you know, if you definitely have to study, you have to revise, you're one of those people that if you don't revise, you're going to forget everything, then I would recommend doing 15-20 minutes of just going over spaced repetition flashcards. I wouldn't try to learn anything new. I would just focus on reviewing information that you've already been exposed to. So keeping your study sessions short and sweet during placement is going to safeguard your mental health and prevent you from becoming completely burnt out, because placements are really stressful and they're also really, really intense. And while you're on placement, you're going to be learning and reviewing information anyway. You have to think of your placement as a study day almost, but it's just a practical study day. So you're not going to come home from an 8 or 12 hour study day and then add an extra 1 or 2 hours of study on top of that. That's unrealistic and a little bit ridiculous that you'd be expected to do that. Making your study sessions short and sweet if you have to be revising, or cutting them out completely so that you can safeguard your mental health, is my tip. So that was today's video. It might have been a bit of a long one, but I promise you everything in this video that I've talked about really has helped me in achieving all of the A's that I have gotten, whilst also remaining relatively sane and not burnt out as of yet. I really hope that you guys enjoyed or found it interesting. Drop a comment about what you do to study, because I'm always interested in how other people study and learn new things. And don't forget to like, subscribe, to all of that good stuff. I'll see you guys next Monday with a new video, but until then, have a lovely day and a fabulous week. Bye!